In today's video, I take this fabulous marketplace find and use this inspiration photo to give it a whole new look. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's video is part of a dupe collaboration that I am participating in with Lavon from Le Vintage Decor, so make sure you check out her video. Also, I will have the link in the description. This marketplace find has some good potential, but there are some major gouges in the top that go down to the particle board as well as on the side. The doors, I really like this on this piece, and the handles, but the handle is broken, so I'm gonna have to figure something out. I want to make this piece over for myself to hold my records, so let's see what we can do with it. This furniture piece has two cabinet doors and then one fake one in the middle. So I start by disassembling the piece, removing the handles, and propping it up so it's easier to work with. These are some wood furniture dollies I got from Harbor Freight, and they really help with moving big, heavy furniture around by yourself. I will link them in the description. This is the pink stuff I found from Home Depot. I have warm water in my bottle so I can put the cleaner in there and it will dissolve and shake it up, and I end up spraying water everywhere as I mix it together, but that's okay because I spray a little amount of cleaner on the surface, come back with an old kitchen sponge to scrub it, and then wipe away the excess cleaner water with a cloth. I've been testing out this pink stuff to replace my TSP cleaner, and I'm not really fond of the smell, so this will probably be the last time that I do use that spray bottle. Once I'm done cleaning, I do come back with some warm water and a clean cloth and wipe away any remaining soap residue and let the surface air dry. I decide I want to lift this piece up off the ground, so I need to add legs. To assess how to do that, I need to look at the bottom. I know there are a lot of us ladies and gents furniture flippers who do this by themselves, so here's an example of how I move heavy furniture around by myself in the workshop. When I assess the bottom, I can get it flush on the back side, but on the front side of the dresser, there's this extra piece of wood that will need to be removed so I can make the legs both even when I attach them. If you are interested in seeing how to take outdated furniture and turn it into a more modern look, you're definitely in the right place, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, the legs I have need to go on something because there's this lip around the bottom and they won't be visible, so I decided to use some 4x4s. I do have to cut them down to size, so I hold them into place and use a marker to mark my line for cutting. And apparently I decided it was more important for you to look at my shoulder than to actually see me make the cut. So sorry about that. But I do that 4 times, so I have 4 pieces, one for each corner to add the legs to. Now I need to attach these to the body of the dresser somehow, or to the buffet somehow. So I do clamp them into place and come up with a way to attach these to where they have nice sturdy support. So I drill a hole from the outside, and I have more space to work with on the sides, so I do like a triangle shape on the side and then one on the front side of the buffet, so I have 2 sides to secure the leg to make it more stable. Once I have the holes drilled, I come back with the countersink drill bit so I can drill the screws in, and the screw head will go down below the surface so I can cover that and you won't see it in the final result. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably have noticed that when I attach the legs, it's usually different method each time. And that's because each piece of furniture I work with is very different. So I have to figure out a unique way to make the leg attachment work with each piece. I've been doing this for a while, so by now I have a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. But for me to get there, I had years of trial and lots of error. All right, I love the original handles on this piece, but a couple of them were broken, and unique handles are really cool, but when they're not all there, it's really impossible to find replacements. So I need to fill this. Instead of using $20 worth of Bondo, I decided to cut up some really cheap popsicle sticks, use some wood glue, and place those popsicle stick chunks into it to help fill it up first, and then I let that dry. After the glue was all set, I did mix up some Bondo. This is Bondo wood filler. It's a 2-part mix. The little red dot is the hardener, so you mix it together and you have a few minutes to work with it. I filled the handle holes the rest of the way. I also filled in those big gouges that were on the top of the buffet, and also used this to cover the screw heads for the leg attachments that I did. And then I let that Bondo dry for about an hour. Now when it comes to sanding, you don't have to have a fancy sander like me. You can sand this by hand or by other sanders, but I love my Surf Prep sander with the foam abrasive pads to get these detailed curved edges. I then go with flat regular sandpaper on my Surf Prep sander to sand all the Bondo areas smooth, and then I scuff sand the entire surface of the buffet with a 120 grit sandpaper. After all that sanding, I wipe the dust away with a damp, lint-free cloth and then let the surface air dry. I do have some spots where particle board is exposed, so to seal in those areas, I grab my can of spray, clear shellac, and do a couple coats and then let that thoroughly dry. I'm going to roll my primer on today, so I take some painter's tape and roll it the opposite direction on my hand, run my roller over it to get all the fuzzies off of it before I start to roll my primer on. This is Kiehl's primer in gray. I have been using this in a lot of my videos lately. I have been testing it against the Zinsser's Ben 123, and I just think that this Kiehl's is the far superior primer, and it blocks more bleed through than the Zinsser does, in my opinion. I do 2 coats of the primer, letting it thoroughly dry between each coat. After both coats of primer were dry, I do come back with a sanding sponge, lightly go over the surface, and wipe the dust away to get it ready for the next step. Lately, I've been behind on getting YouTube videos out. I've had a lot of custom orders come in, which is a great thing, but I've also taken a few trips. One family vacation, we took my nephew on a boat where they collected up local marine life where they could pet them and pick them up. He was terrified to pick up the blowfish, so I promised him if he did, I would put him on my YouTube channel. So here is his few moments of fame. Good job, Donovan, you finally picked it up. Alright, to create the faux wood look, I'm going to use products that I have lying around in the workshop. This is some leftover flat paint that I have from a project of a custom order. This is stucco tan. This is a bear paint color. Now I am following this method. I haven't done a faux wood look before, so I'm following the tutorials of Shannon from Black Sheep House. She is the queen of the Pottery Barn Target style faux wood look, and she was so kind to let me follow her tutorials and mention them in my video. They're so easy to follow. I definitely recommend following her videos if you would like to achieve a look like this as well. I do 2 layers of this light tan. Now, the next product that I use to make the faux wood grain says to be over satin paint. This is flat, so I'm just spraying 2 coats of satin poly to make my flat paint a satin finish. Now I'm creating this faux wood look on some vertical pieces and horizontal pieces. So a tip that I picked up from Shannon is to block off and work in sections. So I'm taping off and I start with the sides. I also saw on one of her videos that she used this Valspar water-based glaze. So I have this lying around in my workshop. I've been waiting to use for years. The color I had in stock is called Mousse Mousse. And Shannon has gone through and perfected the colors of paint and oil or glaze to use to get that Pottery Barn look. So if you are interested in that, definitely hop over to her channel. I will make sure to link the description. Now, this again is my first time, so I'll just kind of share what I learned from the experience of it. If you want the exact how-to to do it, I would definitely recommend watching a few of her videos. So I apply just a regular synthetic brush and apply a layer, and then I go back and make all my swipes in one direction. You have to have multiple brushes to achieve the perfect look, and I learned all of this from watching Black Sheep House. This is a cheap chip brush, and I'm going through and wiping off all the excess glaze that I have pulled up on the side. And then the trick to getting the smooth, like perfect finish on this, also a tip that I learned from Black Sheep House, is to buy a deck brush. Now these brushes are like $16 at Home Depot, but it really gives it that look. And you just do gentle swipes in one direction, trying to keep your strokes even. Now I decide one layer of this mousse mousse glaze isn't quite as dark as I would like for my house. So I let it dry and then come back and I do add a second layer. Now this is a water-based glaze and I'm adding more water-based products. When that happens, the second layer always reactivates the first layer. So I learned trial by error. When you are applying the second layer of the glaze on, make sure you go with light strokes. If you press too firm, you will remove the second and first layer off back to that tan paint underneath. So just a tip of advice. But I use the exact same process on the second coat as I did the first coat. And I just continued with this process all over the outer body of the buffet to get that perfect faux wood look. Now, the method is fantastic. Shannon has perfected it. Did mine turn out perfect? No, this is my first time, but this piece is for me, so I didn't really care. And I enjoyed trying a new technique. You can see here how her method gives you that faux wood grain look. Now, if you remember from my inspiration photo, the middle has a black and white Greek key pattern. So this is how I achieved that look. I lightly mist the surface with some water and then use Dixie Belle's Caviar. Dixie Belle is a very thick chalk paint, so the water helps to smooth out the paint and spread it around more easily. I do 2 coats of the Caviar and let that thoroughly dry. I have already finished the faux wood look around the body of the buffet, so I do come in with a small artist brush to paint the trim that are around the cabinet drawers. I happen to have bought this Greek key pattern a couple years ago and have never used it, so I will try to find this stencil or one similar and link that in the description for you. But I tape the stencil down into place, and then to fill the stencil, I want a lifted raised pattern, so I'm using Dixie Belle's Mud in black. I use a putty knife to put the Dixie Belle mud on there and spread it around, trying to get it kind of even but not super even, because this is a very textured, uneven look that I'm going with in the middle part of the buffet. After filling the stencil on both of the panels on the door, I just rip it up in one swift motion. While the Dixie Belle mud is still wet, I do use a putty knife to wipe away the excess chunks that are hanging over the edge. Now, when it was fully dry, I do go ahead and paint on a layer of poly just to help protect. The next layer that I use is white, and I don't want the paint or chalk paint colors bleeding together to make gray. So once the polyurethane was dry, I come back with some white paint. This is Bear chalk paint. I mix together 10 white and farmhouse white to make this beautiful creamy but not too creamy color of white. I do 2 coats of the white and then let that dry. When it is dry, I come back with some 120 grit sandpaper wrapped around an old sanding sponge and knock the white paint back, and it's just going to lift up and exposed in the areas that I had applied that black Dixie Belle mud. So it will expose the black and white Greek key pattern that I'm going for. I'm sure there are other ways to achieve this, but this method worked well for me and gave me the exact look that I am going for on this piece. All right, you guys know that I love my water-based polyurethane in a satin finish by Varathane. I apply 3 coats of this, spraying it, allowing it to dry 2 hours in between each coat, and then I let all the coats of poly dry overnight. All right, the last thing I have to do is figure out a way to make the drawers open and close since they no longer have handles. These are some push open latches that I found at Home Depot. I would normally put them maybe on the top part of the door, but there was not enough wood space to attach to, so I'm putting them on the bottom. I put it into place where I wanted it and then marked it and then drilled a couple holes and then attached the screws into place. Now there is a magnetic piece that goes on the back of the door, and instead of having to measure, this is the method that I use. So I put the magnet into place and then adjusted it, make sure whenever I close the door that it's not hanging down from the bottom. Once I'm happy with where the magnet is located, I grabbed a pencil, crawled in the other side, and marked around on the back of the door where the magnet hits it. Then I used my pencil markings as a guide, held the magnet into place on the back of the door, marked where the middle screw is supposed to go, and attached that magnet into place. I'm sure there is a more professional way to attach these open and close latches, but you can see that this method worked for me and the doors open and close like they're supposed to. All right, here's a reminder of the piece that we started with that I wanted to make for my record player cabinet. And then this is what it looks like now. With the new legs, this piece now has a mid-century vibe, which goes perfect with my house, and my records fit perfectly in there on the top shelf. Thank you again, Shannon at Black Sheep House, for having amazing tutorials on your channel and allowing me to use them to create a custom one-of-a-kind piece for me in my own home. La Vintage Decor is also participating in this dupe collaboration, so make sure that you hop over to her channel and check out her video. That is all I have for you guys today. Until next time.